Welcome to the Bandwich Tapes. I'm Brad Williams. On this episode, I'm joined by bassist Tim Lefebvre. Tim is one of the most inventive and wide-ranging bass players of the last few decades, with a career that has taken him from jazz and experimental music to major pop and rock stages around the world. He has worked with artists including David Bowie, Tedeschi Trucks Band, Bryan Adams, Chris Botti, Wayne Krantz, Melissa Etheridge, and many more, and his playing on Bowie's Blackstar alone would be enough to make him a fascinating guest. In this conversation, we talk about serving the song, adapting to different drummers and artists, the balance between personality and restraint, and what goes into building a career across so many different musical settings. We also get into his early years in Massachusetts, his gear and tone choices, sobriety, the difference between New York and Los Angeles, and some unforgettable stories from the road and the studio. Here's my conversation with Tim Lefebvre.
Running from a bitter taste, took a rest from all the chase, feeling something anchored in my soul. Played the game by all the rules, learning lessons no one gets to choose. Everywhere I turn, here I am. So walk away with me. I'll show you that I would go anywhere, anytime. I would do anything, anyway, anyhow.
Tim, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the podcast. How are things today?
Hey, Brad. Thanks for having me. Everything's good. Sunshine is in. It's sunshiny out. It's all good here in
That's
California.
great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. How long have you lived in California?
Basically since like 2011, except for
Okay.
during COVID, where I moved out for a second. I moved to Arizona and Vegas, but it was only like 2 years. So
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're from the Northeast, right?
yeah, from Boston area.
Okay. Nice. Have you made it? Are you a West Coast sports fan yet? Or are you still Boston sports
Oh,
fan?
Boston all the way. Every Boston team. That's
Okay.
never going to change. Yeah, it's no bandwagoning for me. Although, I like the Rams. They're okay. I like the Chargers. I don't hate them. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think. I don't like the Dodgers, have to admit.
Well,
Only because
that's-
they're the West Coast Yankees,
That's it. That's exactly it. Yeah, I saw your Sox won today, so
Yeah.
that's good. Well, excellent.
Yeah.
So, what is your 2026 so far? Are you staying busy playing with everyone under the sun like you typically are?
Yeah, I'm saying, doing a lot of recording stuff. What's going on? I got some tours coming up. I'm kind of just been doing some shorties so far. I went to Japan with Steve Lukather and Michael Landau, Jeff Babko, and Keith Carlock. That was fun.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, that was just like a 10-dayer. And then I did a one-off with this. I played a piano trio in Germany with this guy, Michael Walney. So we played a lot last year. So we just did a one-off in Luxembourg. And then got a one-off this weekend with Nate Smith and Jason Lindner. Let's see. Yeah, so I've been sort of not doing too much jazz this year, actually, weirdly. So I've been doing some gigs here and there, but mostly it's leaning towards recording and pop and stuff like that. So yeah.
Do you have
I'm going on. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Please go ahead.
I'm going on tour. And the big tour this year is going to be summer in Italy with this guy Tiziano Ferro, and then with Melissa Etheridge right after.
Oh, nice. Do you have a lane you typically like to stay? Do you like the variety of it all? I mean, that has to keep everything fresh for you. Just getting to play with so many different people and so many different styles of music.
I just, I just kind of think like what am I offering? Like, I don't know. I just, I'm not like one of those guys who like intentionally says, well, I'm going to just do my thing over this. I mean, I try to pay attention to what's really happening in the recordings, but if I feel like, and it's cool with the artist and cool with the MD, I'll take some liberties on some parts and stuff. But, yeah, generally it's funny. Like you hear back, like board tapes from people who've done the gig before. And it's just like, well, I wouldn't do, like the choices are different than what you would do. So like I sort of, like sometimes it just means, like you hear somebody playing a lot over a song. Like I just knowing that, having heard the playback of whatever happened in that show, it's just like, well, it just sounds like they're bored. And I just think like playing simpler is better on some stuff,
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's...
Which is weird for me because I'm the note king.
Well, and I think, so much of it has to be bringing your identity to the project. It's that tightrope I would guess of bringing your own identity to the project while still staying true to, who the artist is or the person hiring you, true to their vision to it.
Yeah, it's tricky. And, like I said, there's a balance there. Like, because, it's always nice to, okay, great, they're hiring me for me, sort of like there's that vibe. But it's at the same time, it's like, well, yes, but, you want to stay true to, at least stay in the ballpark of what originally happened on the recordings and or the shows, So, yeah, I mean, I just try to just straddle that tightrope. And it feels good because the band will look over and think, yeah, like there's always, you get the idea. Of that it's the right thing,
Yeah, absolutely. And then looking around online and listening to stuff, not a lot of early stuff of when you got into playing. When did you start playing and when was it bass from the beginning, or what was your origin with all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I picked up bass in 7th grade. But originally, like in Massachusetts, you have to play a horn first. So like in 4th grade, it's the elementary school band. So I played alto sax, I think, first, and then I switched to tenor. Like, and then as my dad was actually the guy who like said to me, "It's like you're a bass player." Like he just knew because my sister had a guitar hanging around the house, and I was just kind of playing single note stuff, following along with records, and he was like, and so he. Yeah, then he forced me to do all these gigs with him, but because he was a general, they call it GB in Boston. It's like where you go around and doing corporate and weddings and stuff like that. So he made me come out on some gigs, and I made some money. It was kind of nice, but I came out and started doing some gigs like pretty much in 8th, 9th grade, like when I was decent enough on bass. And I had I had to follow his left hand, to learn songs. It's like, whew, man, so it was a lot. But I'm grateful because he's the one who pointed me in the ship, steered the ship that way. And then I also had this is like the 80s and mostly early 80s. There was no real internet stuff going on, but I was fortunate to have a really good high school band director too, who was pretty famous in Massachusetts, kind of along the country, to be honest. His name was Steve Massey. Because I went to the school called, I grew up in Foxborough, Mass, which is where the Patriots play. But the school system was very good there. Then the band director was unbelievable. So I did a lot of learning there. So
did you play saxophone through high school, or did you move over to string bass, or what were you doing?
Yeah, what happened was, let's see, when I was 15, I got an upright bass, and then I was kind of like, I just, it's funny, like because I'm sort of I took some initial lessons with somebody. In a town near me to learn some electric stuff, just some technique stuff and how to read bass clef and all that stuff. But after that, I never studied again. And then I kind of did the same thing with upright, although I regret that because, that's an instrument that's just a beast. And there's so many guys who are technically way better than me. But by not having studied with, formally, I can't bow and I can't do all this stuff. I mean, I can sort of bow, but it's terrible. But I have my own unique approach, but by not having studied with somebody, which I didn't really realize. I mean, I still, on electric, I'm okay with myself playing electric, but on upright, I'm intimidated by guys who can really play it. You know what I mean? You're just like watching these wizards just go up and down the neck. I'm just like,
I'm with you. I'm a bass player too. I
cool.
started out playing drums, but eventually started playing bass, and I'm with you on that. I mean, I play upright enough to, get the job done, but really good upright players intimidate the hell out of me. So I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I mean, a lot of last year I spent playing upright because we did a lot of piano trio in Europe last year. So, but we wrapped up the tour in November, and by the time that tour came to an end, I was in there. Like I felt decent creatively about what was happening, because a lot of it's like you want to do stuff, but you can't pull it off because you're not practicing. You're not practicing, and it's just sort of frustrating. And I'm still there. It's like it's not like that's an instrument you can never really feel happy about how you play.
Yeah.
There's always a note that's out of tune. It's just like,
Yeah, I never. If I really want to do a number on my self-esteem, I just need to play some upright for a little while, and I'm like, wow, yeah, I'm a terrible human being, apparently.
Me too. Me too.
I would imagine too, with as much as you work with, as many people as you work with, do you have a workflow for shedding tunes? Because I imagine you're learning a lot of different tunes at any given time. Do you kind of have a routine for that, or do you like to listen? Do you practice with an instrument, or kind of what's your routine with that?
I mean, like, so for this show I'm doing this summer with the Italian artists, like I just wrote everything out first, you know what I mean? And then, so like, I tend to memorize like in a visual way. So like, I remember, okay, this 8 parts happens here. And also like, both in with Melissa Etheridge too. I mean, I could come out there with an iPad and not, I mean, it's a small enough thing where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm reading the gig a little bit, but at the same time, it's like, I didn't write the music. So like, I know it's like you're expected to memorize the stuff most of the time, but I'd rather not screw up and like read it and then screw up and just I don't know. I think bass is very important, like to have like to really steady the foundation of the whole thing, and it's like messing up because you don't have the stuff memorized isn't really necessary to me. Like I think you should just have it in front of you if you need it, and then you won't screw it up. And like, especially on these stadium shows, like with Tiziano Ferro, the Italian artist, is like, man, it wasn't like I didn't screw up at all, like that whole summer, but because we did it in 2023. But like by having it in front of me, I screwed up a lot less. And by the time the tour was coming to an end, I did have a lot of it memorized, just by repetition.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I would rather just have it there just in case, especially if it's something I'm not 100% on. I'm with you. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I remember one of the most surprising evenings for me, I took my wife to see Bryan Adams years ago and walked into the show, and the band walks out and there's you playing bass. And I'm like,
oh, wow. Is that? I remember that at the Fox Theater, right?
So I was living in Atlanta at the time. I wasn't in St. Louis yet.
Yeah.
And I looked at my wife and I said, I apologize, but I'm only going to be watching the bass player all night because I didn't know he was going to be here. what a wonderful surprise! That was
a blast, that tour. And I actually told him too the same stories. It's like, man, because I was still in Tedeschi Trucks Band, and he asked me to jump on this tour because Norm, the normal bass player, like had some issues with his parents or something. Something went down where like he was scrambling. So I told him, I was like, man, we went to Australia and all this stuff, like, and that's why I was learning his show. I was like writing everything out, so I told Brian, it's like, listen, I can't really do any dance moves, and I may not have everything memorized. I may have to cheat, So I had a binder on the back of that Ampeg. That like if I didn't know where I was occasionally. I mean, these are songs we grew up with, so It's not like foreign, there was only a couple like new things that he had done that I didn't, but most of it was like pretty straightforward. And I got the hang of that tour pretty quick. But it was such a blast. I mean, just to go out there, that's the first tour I played where I was playing just huge hits in front of people,
Yeah. And it just felt so live, I remember we got to the venue, it is some one of those outdoor venues, and they hadn't opened the gates yet. And sound check was happening. And I could hear the band just you guys were just playing a bunch of cover tunes from other bands. I'm like, they just sound like they're having a freaking blast, just hanging out, playing with each other.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. Keith Scott's great and Gary Bright, and I was lucky enough on that tour with Mickey Curry, who played on a lot of the original stuff and all this very huge Hall & Oates hits too. So I was playing with a legend. It was really cool.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
I have to, I put it in my notes. I would be remiss if I didn't just ask a little bit about doing your experience playing with David Bowie on that album. Just kind of what that experience was like, kind of what you were asked to do, and was it an adjustment from what maybe some of the things that you normally would get asked on a project?
What's funny? That was kind of like the first experience. Tony Visconti was producing, but really David was kind of running the show when we were tracking the band, because he had none of the lyrics were ready, and David would come in the room and sing with us. But in terms of the musical direction, it was pretty much decided by Bowie at that point. He's like, oh, I like that. I don't like that. So he never said he didn't like anything, but because he was willing to let us experiment. But, basically like having, because I was in Tedeschi Trucks at the time, it's like, okay. And I'd done plenty of songwriter gigs and had some experience in that. I was like, this isn't my platform to go jerk off on his songs, we would get the demos. I'm like, okay, I'll stick to but you could add some sauce to it. You could add some sound effects and, just like as little overdubs like for instance, the intro and the outro of Lazarus is something I came up with in the studio, because when we were recording it, the demo just like 1, 2, 3, 4, bound, like the whole band's in. And so there was no intro or outro. And so like the first or second take, we just had no outro either. So I just started playing some high kind of guitar-y kind of stuff. And he's like, oh, I like that. Put that at the beginning. And that was it. And there you have it. And it was like, and then we had an intro and outro. I know, it's cool. Like he was like, it was a really cool experience because, at that point, he was over the fame part of it. It was just like, we were just a small group of people making a record in the studio. It was Bowie, so it was a little different, but no, but it was an incredible experience just because it's like looking over, it's like, whoa, it's Bowie. And he's hilarious and warm, like one of the most well-read people I've ever met. So it was super cool. Yeah.
I noticed that you and Mark really matching a lot of patterns on a lot of those tunes. A lot of the kick drum bass patterns there is some interplay happening, but a lot of the time it's you two really locking in on the same pattern. Were you guys coming up with those rhythmic ideas, coming up with those when those tunes were being arranged, or was that some direction from David or Tony?
There was no spoken direction. It's just kind of what was happening on the demos. So like, the Blackstar track, for instance, like that, that weird drum pattern at the beginning of it, that was in David's demo. So we just, and I was just playing Tony Levin kind of footballs. Like, it was just a low sense playing long notes. And so, that's what I was doing. I was kind of thinking about Tony Levin when I was with an octave split, I didn't have a fretless. So, but a lot of times that was just what was on the demos,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
So we just kind of, and that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, you're not here to put yourself all over these tracks. You know what I mean? At least I wasn't. The drums and bass weren't. Mark got to do some stuff like on Girl Loves Me. He went kind of nuts. They love the busy, like kind of trappish drum thing,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's sort of like, a lot of it was locked in. It was, and things like Dollar Days and a lot of the Blackstar track, it was sort of like that was a little more, especially the middle of Blackstar track. That was more like, okay, there's really no direction here. So we just kind of like, okay. And, just spitballed within 2 takes, I just kind of was going for the Serge Gainsbourg, Justin Melville Johnson vibe, and like just playing a lot of notes with a pick and it like super compressed, and it ended up working great. But I came into that afterwards going, when we did the track that became the final track, I was like, "You want me to go punch that?" Because I was like, "No," because I was like kind of nervous. That's the track I did me on it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And reasonable facsimile of that Serge Gainsbourg thing, and also like kind of the end of it, I was putting some Pino-ish, D'Angelo kind of hump stuff at the end.
Yeah,
and it's just
absolutely.
like, yeah. But you come into the control and it's like, I said, "You want me to go?" Yeah. I didn't know that, and they said nothing. I was like, "Cool."
Oh man, the bass sounds so good on that album. It's just, I know you have to feel so proud of that project, man. It's just you sound so good on that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's just paying attention to. I don't even know. I mean, I actually use like a Yamaha EM80 like little PA head as the head for the bass, and then into a B15. So like the amp sound was good. I used this one with my 68P. It was just kind of like, all right,
Yeah.
thanks. I mean, I appreciate it. I didn't. I'm trying to think. It's like some of it was pretty. It felt high pressure. So like and it got a little like it's the more sessions we did. We did 3 1-week sessions, and so the further down the line, the more confident we get. But generally, it's just like kind of tight roping a lot of it, and just like, oh, is that cool? Is that cool? And it turned out to be cool. But
Yeah.
You never know. This is David Bowie. So like
you never know, right? And what's funny about that is I'm sure you've worked on much smaller projects in your career where the person you worked for took it way more seriously and probably made it almost a drag, meanwhile you're working with Bowie and it's like way more of a laid back experience letting you do your thing.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I think as long as it's not stomping on what the lyrics are going to be, I think everybody's cool with that. I work with people who microscope some bass stuff, and it's okay. That's what they're paying you for. It's cool.
Yeah.
And it's usually because they want you to be more creative, not less. So I just I'm happy to do it either way. Cool. You're cool with that. I'm cool with that. Which is I work with this producer. He's won some Grammys for working with Madison Cunningham and stuff. This guy in LA named Tyler Chester, and that's his whole vibe. It's like like your own take may not be perfect, but he's like the whole vibe of that take, the whole band, like just everything that went down. It's very much a live, like old school approach to it goes to tape. Like just a very old school approach to playing music with people, and it's just super live, and so it's really cool, like to see how there are still people operating that way.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of remote recording stuff, or do you typically you do a lot of stuff from your place?
Yeah, a decent amount.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I know I was just talking with someone else about this earlier today. There's the pros and the cons, right? You're not dealing with driving all over the place to go play a session, but at the same time, you probably miss being in a room with people because there's magic in that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I just did one the other day for Mark Luterio, I think, who's been on your.
Yeah.
I wish I had been, because JT Thomas is one of my favorite drummers, and I never get to play with him ever. Like, it sucked. And and so so he's on drum bands. It's like, oh, this feels so good. And I was just like, oh boy, But and like again, it's the guessing game. It's like, okay, because he was saying go nuts, but I kind of stuck to the kind of the written part. I did took a couple liberties, but for the most part, it's just sometimes you have to use your own radar to know what's cool and what's not. But yeah, but I also like really enjoy going to a studio and hanging out with people, and because it also in the end, all that energy from other people is going to help you get something better, I think.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
You've worked with so many different drummers and so many incredible drummers. I mean, as many good drummers as one bass player could probably work with in their career.
It has been a dream come true.
Yeah, how much does your playing change depending on who is playing drums, or how much of it is still you? Do you find that you kind of morph a little bit based on who you're playing with?
Yeah, I think you can. Because there's certain wheelhouses everybody occupies. Like there's like the Mark Juliana, there's the Zach Danziger, like kind of like more popcorny, like interactive. It's not just straight grooves. It's like what they do with the beats, and no matter what the genre is, really incredible.
Yeah.
But like the Keith Carl, I played probably with Keith Carlock when I lived in New York more than anybody. So anybody who even sounds like him, to some degree, has some of his influences rubbed off on like guys like Nate Wood and Lewis Cole. So like that's very comfortable to me, like the kind of grittish, like wide pocket stuff. So like that's nothing. I know kind of what to do with that. Then somebody like Abe Laboriel Jr. Like it's just everybody. Like I said, I'm spoiled. So like it's just sort of. I mean, there's a million guys I can name. Sorry if I'm not naming you off now, whoever's watching this. But you'd have to adapt a little bit, But I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. It's like there is some adaptation involved, but at the same time, it's also like, well, you also sound good, So like, why not? Like you can, Like I've recently started playing with Carla Azar from Autolux, and she was in Jack Black's band for a minute. And it's interesting, totally different, like Jackie Liebezeit kind of thing. It's like, okay, how do I fit in this? It's really cool.
When you start playing with a drummer that you haven't worked with, what are some of the things that you immediately like try to zero in on that you can kind of latch on to?
Kind of like where they're putting 2 and 4. Like how metronomic it is or how not metronomic it is, and like just like what their slip and slide is. Like nobody plays perfect time, so like it's just a matter of like where is their elasticity, and where can you put, how can you make your thing work with that or against it, or, like whatever. Like some guys play totally straight, and like maybe you could swing your bass a little bit, like play a little bit more swung. Or there's other drummers who play, that's one of the James Brown things. Like, those guys could play, like Doublefield would play like some kind of almost swung groove, and like the bass would play it straight. Like I noticed that a lot with James Jamerson recordings. Like guys were playing very, very like kind of loosely, like Earl Palmer, any of the Wrecking Crew guys, just like super loose pockets, and then the bass would tend to be playing straight, because it was kind of that fight.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, and I'm just thinking about some of my North Stars of bass who are some of those people like as you were coming up, like the Jamersons or even Tony Levins. Were you listening to a lot of these players as in your teenage years?
Sure. I mean, not so much. I mean, Jamerson just because he was on all these AM radio hits, like oh, that's cool. Like that's the kind of that kind of 60s, 70s, kind of just. I think they would just throw up a chord chart in front of these guys and then just start playing whatever derivations they know of every chord, which is cool. And that genre with R&B or, like Stax, Detroit sound, they just kind of would do it that way. And then, so that was by osmosis, and Paul McCartney, obviously all that melodic stuff with the pick but then, like who I really latched onto was like Darryl Jones, Marcus Miller, and Victor Bailey, and Jocko, of course. But but like Jocko couldn't really tuck in like the Darryls and the Marcuses, what I mean? Like so, like because you can't help but notice Jocko on a track, as a sideman.
Yeah,
I mean?
Yeah, and those other players. I'm just thinking like if you weren't paying attention to it, you may not even realize some of it is even there, which is a beautiful thing in itself.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I thought, the way when Darryl was playing with Sting, like the bass was mixed down pretty low, so it's hard to really know what he was doing. But when you watch the movie, the Bring on the Night movie, it's like, oh shit! I was like, okay, that's how I learned to really play. Like that's how I learned to slap, because he was like, all his slapping was coming based on an eighth note, like, So everything, like when they were playing When the World Was Running Down, he's like, I noticed he was just doing that. It wasn't like this fancy Louis Johnson shit. It was just like, and I was like, okay, that's the trick. So that becomes your fulcrum, and also Marcus Miller would do that. But Marcus Miller was always doing some more fancy stuff too. But and yeah, Larry Graham. They're all at the Larry Graham school. But yeah, I mean, like I think Victor Bailey would poke out a little more sometimes.
Yeah,
because he had a little more distinctive. But there's this one Michael Brecker record called "Now You See It, Now You Don't." It's as a sideman, Victor just blew my head off. And also Jim Beard, R.I.P. Jim Beard, "Song of the Sun." I know Jim was a huge influence on me, like musically.
Did you work with him a lot in New York? Did you through the years?
Yeah, we did. I ended up playing on a couple of records of his too. This one called "Advocate," where it was me and Matthew Garrison. That's the first time I ever got to really. I played with Gene Lake a little bit, I guess, back then. But Gene Lake was another bad boy. Yeah, so that was like kind of the New York era. Like, yeah, Gene, me, who else was on? Yeah, Matt and Gene would play on some tracks, and me and Gene would play on a couple tracks, and Zach Danziger played on a couple tracks. And just Jim's writing was just outrageous, And Arto took Biaggi and played percussion and sang and stuff. It was really good,
Man, yeah. Jim was a force, man. It just still breaks my heart that he's no longer with us. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah.
I've talked with a lot of players on here that have either moved from the West Coast to New York or vice versa. Was there any adjustment for you being in the LA scene versus being in New York? Is the scene, are the scenes dramatically different, or is it kind of the same in the world that you play in?
It's a good question. I think the scene's a little different. I definitely think the scene's a little different. Everything's more spread out in LA. So people have a set. I get around in LA. Okay, it's not like I have nothing to complain about. I just in New York, if you were good, you were working. And here it takes a little longer and a little bit I think you're a little more pigeonholed here, or buttonholed, whatever the word is. Oh yeah, he's a freak out avant-garde jazz guy, which that's a piece of it, sure, but so that's a little frustrating that you have to introduce, yeah, I've been here since 2011. You know what I mean? It's like some people will just sleep on you here, but in New York, you don't get slept on, not much anyway. No matter, and that's if you're a great player or you're a dick. It spreads. Everything spreads like wildfire in New York, and here it's a little slower.
And I think about towns like Nashville. I mean, I think so much of that scene is how easy you are to work with. I mean, I've heard so many stories about someone's a great player, an asshole, their phone doesn't ring. It's interesting you say that about New York, and that you can be a pain and your phone may still ring. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, people getting high and, showing up late and stuff. But if you're good enough, I mean, you can get by with that, in New York, because it's just, it's like, I need that. Whatever that is, I need it, no matter, and I'll put up with the bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really,
I mean, I'm no angel. It's not like, it's not like I'm Mr. Perfect by any, everybody has their opinions and blah, blah, blah. But, but I try to be solid and not look too late ever, if possible.
Yeah, man. And I'll tell you, my big, I'm right at going on 2 years sober now. And I have so many regrets for just being a a big drinker on gigs back in the day, man. I have so many regrets, and if there's one thing professionally I kicked myself on was that I know I was a pain in the ass as a guy who was drinking.
I mean, yeah, I did some like, it was kind of a party band back then, like the Chris Bodie gig, like that's something the first couple months I was in the band, I did some gigs pretty hammered down to the good boy, it was probably not a good idea. But yeah, I mean, because I quit drinking in 2008. So like, yeah, I'm sure I had my moments, but I tried not to do any gigs drunk though. It was like not the best if you did,
Yeah, it was just so irresponsible for me. But I've talked with, and it's just, I think it was just, we all deal with our crap in different ways. And I think that's kind of just how I was dealing with mine. But man, the best decision I ever made was just to quit drinking.
It's admirable, and congratulations, honestly.
Well, great. Back at you, I mean, it is probably one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, and I have not regretted it for 1 second. So yeah, I don't miss drinking at all. No, I don't miss it at all either. I just played. I don't play too much anymore, but just recently played, and one of the first times really playing a gig with a bunch of people that I used to drink a lot with, and I was the sober guy on the gig, and I really enjoyed it. I was like, this is a nice change, and I'm really glad that I'm doing this. So yeah. It's really it's really good. Well, congrats to you too. I mean, you've got a lot more down the road than me on it, but congrats to you. So,
well, thanks. Well, listen, I'm Irish Catholic from Boston. I'm genetically predisposed to be, to be that guy.
Yeah. So. I love your sounds. I love your, the gear choices you make. What drives those changes? And I've always been curious. Do you sit with some your gear and shed on it for a while before you take it out, or kind of what's your workflow on maybe some, pedals or setup stuff that you use?
I tend to, in terms of pedals, I audition them live, and then sometimes, if you come up with a cool combination, like sometimes you can remember it and record it. The hardest thing really, honestly, to find, like I have the sub pedal game figured out. And plus, I listen to a ton of electronica. So like, I know what the aesthetic is supposed to be, but it's tricky, it's tricky to play with distortion or fuzz, because there's so many of them, and then so many of them don't work, like either in a track or live, it's just like, because I've been listening to a lot of Meshuggah lately, so I'm into that sound, like the piano wire, fresh round wounds, like going through extreme like quad cortex-y kind of. I just love that sound, and so everything's like dark and low, and so I'm trying to always find that distortion sound, but and also reverbs. Reverbs are tricky because bass, like that's the cool thing about the Yamaha EM80. It's like it's got a great reverb on it, like springish kind of like trashy little. It's super cool. So like I don't have to worry with that one too much. But like reverb pedals are trickier. I tend to like because I play a lot of hollow body stuff with a pick. I tend to like to try to use spring reverb on it. As much as possible.
Yeah.
But
do you play rounds exclusively, or do you play flats a lot too?
It depends. Like I still have one. Actually, it's still the Bowie bass. I still have the same strings from Blackstar on this bass. It's 68p. That's got flats on it. But I kind of went back to. I mean, on some hollow bodies, I have flats. But I kind of went back on the P basses and the jazz basses to rounds. I just been hearing that sound because it's also cool when you use a pick on that. It's like the kind of more driving, 80s, like, here we go, Joy Division-y.
Yeah.
Interpol,
Yeah. I love I just love your pick sound, man. That's just, it's pretty wonderful.
Well, thanks. It's, I've been using, I've also, not to plug, but even though but I just love this pedal. The bass, the Emperor's bass compressor, like really is great with it. Like it's got a cool filter on it, but it's so good with pick. Like it just makes everything jump out and stuff. I tend to use it all the time.
Yeah, I've seen you talk about that. I love that. How long have you been using that?
I'd say 3 or 4 years. Wow.
Really?
Yeah. I've tried a bunch of other ones. Like they're all good. But there's actually one from Union Tune Transistor. I forget what it's called. It's got 2 knobs. It's just like a 1176. Like input and output, and it's banging. It's just like super, super like old school. So that's a great one too. And you know, the other thing about compressors, you can put anything through them. It's not like it just has to be bass, you know. But like because I, you know, if I'm out gigging, no matter what, I'll bring the Empress.
Do you sometimes use effects or use something new to kind of spark a new creative idea, or do you typically let the idea dictate what the sound is going to be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I was going back through. I used to have a Patreon page with my ex-wife, and I was going through some of the videos, like me just plugging in the pedal chain and just seeing what was happening, and it was pretty cool. You know, like it's kind of, oh, okay, this sounds good, or you know, or it sounds bad, and I would say it on the video. It's like, it's working for me. But yeah, I think you play to the pedal. I think you don't just play your stuff and then, oh yeah, let me just do my James Jamerson type stuff with the full blown octave, you know, down. Right. It's like it just doesn't. It's not what it's for, you know, to me. I mean, because I hear people like they pick up the bass and they start playing really fast with like just the sub octave on it. It's like not really what it was for, you know. So that, you know, that dictates some ideas, like just by, you know, having the sub on, it's like, okay, cool. I know. And it depends on like the resonance of what, even in the cans or, you know, when you're in the playback or something like that, if you're listening, it's like, if you're listening back after a couple takes of that's what you're doing anyway. And also like the feeling of when you're on stage, like what does that sub feel like on stage? Like, are they maxing it out? And when they do, it's really a trip. It's amazing. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But I always tend to play to what the pedal does, not, you know. So like if I have a reverb pedal on, I'm going to probably either play like some guitar-y stuff or, you know, that classic 60s, you know, like hollow body Ocean's 12 kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah. What was the learning experience, or what did you take away from your time doing the gig with Tedeschi Trucks? Because I can imagine that had to have been a pretty fun gig, and, you know, what a band, man. I played a few times with Kofi in Atlanta through the years, and just what a force he was. And yeah, incredible band.
We had Kofi and I had a special kind of hookup because, you know, Derek at that point was allowing us to explore harmonically, you know, stuff under people's solos and stuff like that. So we were having a lot of fun, you know. And that was a good unit of the band. It was like me and JJ Johnson and Kofi, of course, and it was pretty spectacular because you could go out, you know, like to be able to go out in front of 3,000 people and just, okay, we're going to be creative tonight. And, you know, and Kevin Williams is a freak as always on saxophone. And Derek obviously is, you know, he's kind of just the puppeteer making the stuff happen. So it was like, you know, I mean, obviously guitar god, you know, that's one thing. Like I got spoiled, you know, like, and I'm not even like, you know, I'm not even talking about the slide guitar stuff. It's just like when he wasn't playing slide, just playing like leads, you know, that to me, the guitar-y stuff was nuts to me, you know.
Yeah.
I just thought some of the best ever. And the slide stuff is amazing also. It's not like but I just, you know, I think people sleep a little bit on just him without the slide, you know.
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I just can't, that had to have been just an incredible time of, just a stage full of people, just so much listening. That's the way I always assess what that band is. It's just really a lot of people locked in listening to each other. Yeah, we had a lot of I think we had a lot of powerful moments, you know, just like, I mean, we were always learning a lot of tunes, but like sometimes we were just hitting home runs, you know, like, and just, you knew it, you know, like people would, there was one night with the Chicago theater, like, I don't know, Derek broke a string or something like that. We were playing,
whipping post, and like the solo section whip out. Derek broke a string, so Kofi took over it, and we just went flying. And then, but the whole concert had been creative anyway. Like Derek was cueing different parts of the song, and it was just like we were all on board, and it was like magic. And just that night, and in front of 4,000 people at Chicago Theater, we just leveled them. I was like, man, that kind of stuff was a career highlights. Just like being that creative and like in front of that many people, like, and they were on board for it. It was amazing.
Oh man, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we felt like we were looking at a little jazz club, like this Coltrane, just like everybody was just going. And then, when Derek got a string fixed, he came in and just level. It was amazing, like, and it all, was unplanned. It was super cool.
That's amazing. How did that gig come your way?
I think there's a lot of theories about it. Like I met J.J. Johnson. Well, really kind of the first time I met them all, we were all playing jazz at the end in France. And I was in this little tent with Mark Giuliana and Jason Lindner and Jeff Taylor. We just doing like electronic beats, just going in there and just leveling the place with just like electronic grooves. But they all came after their show and came to check it out. Because Mark, I don't know if they came from me, but Mark at that point even then was a kind of a bigger name. So they all came to check it out, and then the horn players all sat in, and we all hung out. And I hung out with J.J. Johnson for a second. And he's like, "Man, that was killer! You're like super musical." And so I think he like got in the back of the mind I might be a good fit because they were going through bass players. I think back then after O'Teal quit, and then J.J. kind of stayed on it. And then I did that one off with Donald Fagen on Letterman. We played that one song, and that actually led to. That's how Bryan Adams found me too. Wildly
with you and, I think Wayne was on that and Carlock.
Wayne and Keith. Yeah. And John Leventhal was in that band too, and John was like, I think he was writing with Derek and Sue at the time. He's like, yeah, you should check out Wayne's trio or Tim and blah blah blah. And so like it just kind of happened. And what was cool was like the way Derek did it was like he didn't just come in and audition. He went and did a run, did like 5 gigs. So I did a week with them, and I got there and I knew the songs. I worked on it for like a month. So like he said we're dating bass players. So I was like, okay, I'll come down, give it a whirl. I came down and we did it, and rehearsed for a couple of days. The rehearsals were planned for like a long time, and we obviously I knew the stuff, so we just stopped and went to the beach and hung out and and the gigs went great. So then they offered me the gig, and so I jumped on.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I'm good friends with a guy named Mark Mundy, but his brother is Matt. I don't know if you ever listened to the Aquarium Rescue Unit, the group that O'Teal was in. Mark's brother was the mandolin player in that band back in the day with Bruce Hampton and Jeff Sipe and all those guys. Yeah, O'Teal, he's up there with you, man. Big fan of his playing as well.
He's well beyond me, I think. But he can groove and he can solo his ass off. This guy's crazy. He's great.
Yeah, he is fantastic. Mm-hmm. Well, man, I tell you what, this has been a pleasure. It's been just fun hanging out with you, and back at you. Thank you for having me. Thanks for doing this, and man, thanks for all the music throughout the years, and best of luck to you. I know you have a busy year coming up.
Yeah, and then best of luck to you, and thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please follow or subscribe to the Bandwich Tapes wherever you listen, and consider leaving a rating or review. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.